All right, so this is not going to be a how-to of what the vehicle does, or a review of goat modes or anything like that. So far, I haven't had to use the goat modes very much, which is pretty surprising. There have been a couple of instances where I thought I'd definitely have to. But I'll just go over some of the things that we've done to this. So a little bit of the history. I traded in my 2015 Mustang for this. Bittersweet, a little bit difficult to do. I've driven Mustangs since 1996. So at least I've still got a horse bucking one this time, but it's still a pony. So looking over what the journey was to get where I'm at, I actually went out and got a Outer Banks the first time, so ended up trading that in for the Badlands when one of them showed up. So that was definitely an interesting adventure as well. With the car market the way it is, though, it's one of the few markets where you could actually do something like that. And so I ended up getting the Badlands, and I didn't have all the gadgets that I had in the Outer Banks. No leather seats, no charging pad, or anything like that. But I'm still very, very pleased with the trade. The little gadgets that I had before just weren't that important, as important as being in Arizona, being able to go out and hit some of these roads that the other one may have had a little bit of a difficulty with. So with no further ado, we'll get into some of the changes that we've made to the Bronco as we've gone through this journey. So let me go ahead and get her started up here. I'll show you first of all, one of the biggest upgrades is the Carline Kit for my daily drive. Okay, so we're going to try this Carline Kit and see if I can kind of show that off and how that works. So the car's booting up here. So I've gone ahead and started the car. Now I've unlocked my phone and put it on its main phone screen. It seems to hook up to the car a little bit quicker and better that way. So this is the splash screen that you'll normally see from the Carline Kit. And what it's doing is hooking up to the phone, and bam. So I now have wireless. You can see that phone completely wireless. And if I go into music, I mean, we can show you here real quick, side by side. I can show you that it really is, hit play, and you can see that it's actually going to the Celestials. So you could tell that it's actually, let me turn this off so I don't get banged by YouTube. You could tell that this is actually playing from the phone, so it's actually a really nice setup. So I would definitely suggest getting it if you don't want to mess around with cables. It does free things up for you, and you don't have so much stuff in the way. So that's the Carline Kit. So there are a couple things that I got to learn to live with, and I'm working on it. And I'm not too upset about them. They're not showstoppers by any means. So one of the things that was kind of annoying is if you look down at the controls down here, you'll notice that they're already wearing off. So the chrome that's on there is already peeling, and I'm going to talk to the dealer and see what's going on with that. But that was kind of upsetting and sad. The other thing too that's kind of bugs me a little bit is that I'm 5'11", so I'm not like a real tall guy. I like to have the seat up, but I would have to set it down like low, sports car low, for this to work appropriately. So it just seems like it doesn't want to go up far enough to give me a good field of view. This is actually, the very bottom lip is about halfway through my field of view. So I don't know, it's just, I guess it catches over on this side a little bit. So it just doesn't want to really kind of go up, go to a point where it's useful for me. And being in Arizona, those are actually something that you pretty much need really bad. Another thing too was that my daughter was hanging something up on one of the hanger hooks, which is right here, and you'll notice it's not there anymore. So apparently those are a little bit fragile as well, because it broke off, and it literally broke off. They're about $300 to put a new one on. I'm going to talk to the dealer again on that, see if that gets fixed without having to pay for it. Hopefully that's under warranty. I'm not sure how that works with little things like that. So on to the driving information and driving reviews. So now we're back in my office, and just to go over a little bit of the driving experience that I had. So you'll see that pop up somewhere around here as I talk about it. So there are also a couple more videos that'll pop up somewhere here that you can click on to kind of show a couple of my experiences with the vehicle. I did come from Mustang world, so went everywhere from a 93, so I've been driving since 93, not 96. 1993 Mustang 4-cylinder to a 1996 6-cylinder to a GT in 98. Drove that until the wheels fell off and got a used 2015 4-cylinder EcoBoost. So it was actually a pretty decent little Mustang, and just really enjoyed driving the thing. It had quite a bit of horses behind it. Was able to really get off the starting line. Then, you know, pandemic rolled around, car prices skyrocketed, including used cars, and Ford came out with the Bronco. Always wanted a Bronco. I always liked the smaller Broncos. Don't really need the big truck, so I went with the Sport. And went out and got an Outer Banks, which was the first video that we did, actually, where we went out on one of the roads out here that's a little less than just a gravel road, but really not that bad. So if you go out, and you can check that video. And then a Badlands came up on one of the dealers that I had been looking at before, and so it was time to do a trade. So I did the trade, got the Badlands, and that's the rest of the videos. So driving in town, I can tell you actually I like the Badlands a little bit better than the Outer Banks. For some reason, the Outer Banks just felt a little stiff to me, going around corners and things like that, which is a really strange comment coming from a Mustang. But it just felt a little bit less comfortable driving in the city. Now my new Bronco has a 1.25 lift, and I put on some Falcon Wild Peaks. They're the 245 65 17s, and it still rides better than the Outer Banks. There's a little tiny bit of road noise, especially once tires get broken in, and just depending on the surface that you're driving on, it has a little bit more noise, but it drives really nice. You can see probably some video around here somewhere where I'm going up to Flagstaff, and it's time warped, so it's really fast, but it was actually handling the mountains just fine. It would go up the mountain, go down the mountain. With cruise control on, it actually handles the 6% grades and just actually holds a good speed right through 65 up to 75-ish. Those are the different speed limits coming down from Flagstaff, and it just holds those even straight down those 6% grades. So I might have to touch my brakes once or twice the whole time I am going up and down through the mountains. So that's a big benefit over most of the vehicles that I've driven on that path. I'm usually having to figure out how to best pump the brakes or to manage my speed on those mountains. This winter, when I go pick up my son, should be another good challenge and another thing to check, because if there's snow, I haven't been able to drive in snow yet. So mountain passes with cliffs and death drops to the side plus snow should be an interesting time. So driving in city, one of the things that I really enjoy about it is parking. This thing turns on a dime. I swear it has a better turn radius than my Mustang did, and I can get into just about any spot I want to. So that's another big benefit of it. It also does have some pretty good get up and go. So when I'm getting on the freeway, which I live a little bit outside of Phoenix, jumping on the freeway is no problem at all. I'm up to 75 within the right amount of time, and just merge right into traffic. It's responsive on the throttle. Gas mileage, depending on the winds. Yeah, winds do tend to make a big difference on gas mileage. And I would say that my better gas mileages in the vehicle are somewhere between 65 and 70. If I go much over that, then I do notice a little bit of a hit. After all, I am driving a box down the road, and I'm driving a box with even more boxy stuff sitting on top. If I put the awning on, then it just totally tanks. 16 miles to a gallon probably at the best with the awning, but hey, I'm putting a big sail running down the side of the top of the car, so I'm not going to complain about that too much. So another question you guys probably have is a little bit of the off-roading question. So there are 2 videos that I've done in the past. Oh, actually 3 now. So there's 3 videos I did right after I got the lift kit. I actually went out and did the New River Road / Table Mesa exit road just north of us here, and that's the first video we did. You can see that. So that had a lot of ups and downs, and the person with me was actually a little bit afraid I wasn't going to make it back up the hill very easily. But I never even changed out of normal mode on that trail, except for one time. They had laid some deep new gravel and it just did not want to turn. So I did put it in slippery when I was in that deep new gravel. It was pea gravel, and cleared it right up. It drove just fine after that. It was like driving on concrete. But then the rest of it, just left it in normal mode. I never had to switch out. And you can see in that video that I even lifted a wheel at one point, scaring my friend a little bit, but it did really well. So the next road that we did was we went out to Hassayampa. So this is a different challenge. So this is a dry riverbed. It's actually an underground river. If you go look up the Hassayampa River out by Wickenburg, it's actually a really interesting geological kind of thing. But there we were dealing with sand, and then once we got to the Box Canyon, we were dealing with water and fording water, and then gravel and a stream. I did do some damage. I didn't break it too bad. I did do some damage, had a rock that rolled underneath me. But I can tell you that going through the sand, I didn't even really have to use sand mode. I did put it in sand mode, but I felt that on the way back I didn't, and I don't think it was necessary to even have sand mode. It could have probably handled that just fine in normal. Then there was the fording of the water. It was about almost at the limit, so I would say it was probably around 23 inches worth of water. So I do have the lift in my vehicle, but the water was definitely up to the bottoms of the doors. Didn't have any problems. I set my trail control actually to 4 miles per hour and let it handle the speed going through. This is my first time ever water fording. And it was like driving a boat. It just went right through. No problems, no hiccups. And the bottoms of this is made of cobblestones. So, you'd expect a little bit of slippage or things like that, but it really gripped well and just made it all the way through. Then the third time that we went out, I decided to take a little bit more of a challenge. So I was looking at trails with Onyx and came across the Outlaw Trail up in Sedona. They mark it as 4 out of 10 in difficulty. And we went up there, and you can see in that video that there's quite a few steep areas with steps on them. And the steps were probably, by the time I was going over them, I still had 3 to 4 inches of clearance left. But I was the item holding back the truck, not the truck holding back the driver. I'm still fairly new to all this off-roading, so I'm a little bit timid in some instances until I'm comfortable that I know that the truck can handle something. So that is, from an off-road standpoint, I've been absolutely surprised and impressed by the vehicle. So one thing that has happened that I thought I had broke the vehicle at some point. So our last trip up to Flagstaff, we were driving back up, and you can see here what happened. We actually ended up stalling halfway up the mountain, and the vehicle just did not want to go. No matter how much gas I gave it, it did not want to go, and I wasn't even sure I was going to get to where I could pull off to a safe area. But we did eventually get to a safe area and pulled off. And what had happened was I was throwing the wrench, the dreaded wrench, onto the screen. And the phone app, this is something that I give a lot of credit to Ford for. The phone app actually already had a diagnostic on it. And the phone app, the Ford Connect or Ford, whatever it's called, it popped up and said that it was a turbocharger, supercharger underboost, and that it detected a low boost level. So we let it sit for a few minutes and started it back up, and that wrench went away, but I had a check engine light. So it wasn't a flashing check engine light, and the vehicle was running normal. There was no fluids on the ground or anything like that. So we ended up deciding to baby it home, and it made it home. It behaved just like it normally does. We made it all the way back to Phoenix, and the next day I got up to throw my OBD on it, my OBD reader, and I could see that there were errors, but there was no more check engine light. So it appears that it was something, either a software glitch or it was a temporary thing with the turbocharger, we'll see. as things go on. But yeah, no permanent errors or anything like that. So I wouldn't fault it. I had worked it pretty hard that day. We had gone out to all the way up to Flagstaff, all the way back down. It was a nice hot day the whole day, and we went out and did some swimming out at the swimming hole at Beaver Creek, and then drove all the way back up to Flagstaff. So don't know. Gonna have to keep an eye on that and see how that goes. But that is my 10,000 mile review. I'm absolutely thrilled with the vehicle. It handles off-roading very easy. I'm sure I can do even more than what I've already done, and I plan to. The cargo on it is sufficient, especially now that I have the roof rack. And in-town driving, which is going to be the majority of my driving since it is my daily driver, not worried about it at all. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and if you would comment, click like, and subscribe, and ring that little bell, then you know, you can stay in touch with the rest of our videos. Coming up, I'm going to do a review hopefully of the Onyx software, as well as a couple of other reviews and some driving. So thank you very much for your time, and you have a blessed weekend or day, whichever way it is.